you see that podcast with Joe Rogan?
Yeah, they were on there.
Where him and his buddy Schmachtenberger was on there?
I don't know their names, but I did see that they were on there.
It was like a month ago.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is they talked about like what would be the best way of like conducting, the government right now, because like the government seems like it's overstepping its boundaries with, censorship and stuff like that, and China's presence and whatever. And, it doesn't come down to your government. It comes down to you individually and how you conduct your life. People can tell you to do this or that, and then you can just say no. Yeah. That's always an option. It might not be a good option. You might die, but like that's an option. You can't expect. I was reading Plato's Republic. I love reading Plato's Republic. But they're talking about the whole point of the book is they talk about like how do you create the best regime, the best city. They go through the whole book talking about like, and they bring up like the first idea of a communist community. Everything is equal, you share everything, but then there's a fighting class that you have to defend against people. But then obviously you'll have somebody to rule over everybody to make it work. So then that person will have more power than everybody else. So it's like it's a thought process or a thought game. Going through all these different types of political like stylized governments that could possibly be. And then at the end of the day, they realize that there is no governmental system that will allow a person to be to demand a person to be the best version of themselves. That's a personal decision.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you might have a democracy like we have, a republic that allows you to vote, and we have the freedoms that we have. But then again, it's up to you and your individual relationship with your family, your set of morals, to be the best version of yourself. A government is not going to help you. I mean, you can live in a communist Russia and still have some type of religious relationship with God or religious practice or whatever you do for your set of morals. You can still have that, devoid of any governmental influence. Now they might kill you for it, and they usually do.
Have you seen? Wait. So that was the guy said that, or that was from the book?
So that's in the book. But the two guys on Joe Rogan's podcast were talking about like, what do we do? This, and they didn't have an answer because they were trying to come up with some understanding of like what the best political system would be.
Could do that.
And then in the book, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, Plato wrote about this, where his kind of answer to that question is like there is no best regime.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
And the practice of philosophy, which is a dialectic, which is a conversation between two people where you're exchanging ideas. Like that's what philosophy is.
Yeah.
That's what
I like that.
Yeah, that's what it is. The dialectic. And through dialogue, you come up with things and then you discuss those things. And so the whole book is called a dialogue. So that was Plato's kind of add to philosophy, was the dialogue, where he wrote books and his main character was Socrates.
Okay.
But Socrates was his teacher.
Yeah.
But he wrote books with him as his main character, right?
Huh.
And it was always Socrates talking to political people, statesmen, all kinds of different people, other like rhetoricians and sophists, where they discuss things. And it's just a back and forth where they're discussing ideas. And so that was deemed the dialectic, and that's what philosophy is. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, a lot of people think like you're taught like philosophy is like, this big book that this one person wrote.
Yeah.
Like that's a version of it. But like expressed in like physical form, it's a dialogue. Yeah.
Oh, dialogue, yeah.
Because you have to be honest.
Yeah.
And so there's so in the Republic, Socrates is talking about, being a philosopher. Being a philosopher and how important that is. And all that is just speaking honestly and not allowing certain shame to keep you from speaking openly, which is very hard.
Yeah.
Like,
very hard.
You don't talk to your girlfriend the way you talk to your guy friends.
Fuck no.
Do you want a relationship at all? Okay, all right, then you don't. But that's something that you have to juggle. Yeah. And if you want to have, if you want to practice philosophy, then you have to like get rid of that shame of like someone else's opinion of what you're saying. Yeah. But
that's hard to do.
It's super hard to do. But that's it's like working out to get in shape for a competition. It's very hard to do compared to just working out.
Yeah.
Right. We can have conversations, but then if Stephanie walked in here, we might divert a few things. Yeah. Might not talk about certain things. Not out of like, not because we're up to something, but it's just we're different. The genders are different. We respond to different things differently. Take things away that they shouldn't be taken. But that's why relationships are tough. But anyways, in the book, he's talking about how important philosophy is, and there's a guy called Tristan. I know this is ridiculous, but and he's a rhetorician. So a rhetorician is like a self-help guy.
Okay.
So back in the day, these guys would
they actually had that back then?
Yeah, rhetoricians. So they would teach rich family members' kids how to speak and how to win arguments. Okay. It was kind of like before there was a law professor.
Yeah.
It was this guy, the rhetorician, and he was good at convincing people that he's right. You're always trying to win a debate. It's always about winning the debate. Philosophy is about enjoying the conversation.
Yeah. Huh, I like that.
Yeah. Because if you're trying to win all the time, you're not getting at the truth.
It's just what?
Because because in a debate, if you've ever done debate or anything, you're never trying to convince the other person you're debating. You're trying to convince the audience.
Yeah, that you're right.
Yeah. So when you see political debates, they're not really trying to convince, like Trump's not trying to convince Joe Biden, hey, you should see it this way. It's like, no, we're opposing views right now. We're trying to convince the audience, right? And make the other one look like a buffoon.
Yeah.
So, and in the process of making someone look like a buffoon, you're not, the dialogue is threatened in a way, because you're putting up some type of wall, right? By shaming someone or.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But anyways, I feel like that's what they didn't get. And it's like you had a 3-hour conversation. Even like at the end of the conversation, Joe Rogan's like, dude, I hear all these ideas, but like I don't hear any answers to what you're trying to do. And they're like, well, we think we need to have the conversation more, which is true.
Yeah.
You need to have the conversation more because that's how things are going to change. But then it's always going to come back down to how are you going to live your life? Because like whatever you feel about vaccines or whatever, anything instituted or demanded by or mandated by a government, you can either say I don't want to do it,
say you want to do it,
or I will do it.
Yeah.
It's always up to personal choice. And governments like to have control.
A lot of control.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of their existence, and that's what he talks about. It's like the whole point of a government is to keep existing, no matter what. To hold power, right?
Yeah.
Hold authority. It's just the nature of what it is. So it's
kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah,
because people always think like the whole goal of the government is to help you,
right?
To meet your needs.
Yeah,
which is like your needs don't come first,
right? But that's a good point because that's part of having a healthy society is helping people as well.
Yeah.
You want your government to help you more, right? To do the best thing, to be the best father figure, God entity that there is, but that's just not humanly possible.
Yeah.
But in the process, you have to appease your people somehow, right? And so if people just say, "Hey, I'm not going to do this," well, then they got to change their tune.
Yeah.
But unless that happens, they don't have to, right? They can keep pushing certain agendas or whatever they want, and they'll keep continuing, So but it comes down to an individual response.
Have you seen that? Have you heard of the thing that happened with the tennis player in China?
Yeah.
Dude, that thing is crazy.
Yeah, they still haven't seen her yet.
No, to have that much control over social media to make someone just like disappear.
Put that up
like
to you.
I'm trying to figure out what.
Push it back. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like that. Like if social media gets to that point, or the government has that much control like that shit is scary. She disappeared within like 24 hours.
Yeah.
No sight of her.
Yeah.
And the like Olympic committee talked to her. but they needed a translator
Right.
when she speaks perfect English and she wasn't alone and like shit like that.
Yeah, there's no footage of it.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
It's sketchy.
It is sketchy, man, but that's kind of how they do it over there.
Yeah, which is fucking scary.
It is scary. And that's like a lot of people think that that's where America's go.
With
headed.
the censorship and
Yeah,
stuff?
with censorship. Yeah. Because look, it doesn't matter if someone disagrees with you. When you censor somebody, all you do is make people more dogmatic about what you just censored.
Yeah.
And they could be wrong. But now they're getting more dogmatic. They're more angry, they're more incentivized to keep doing it.
But I feel like even if you just have the discussion, that usually like ends in it's always a better scenario.
Yes.
Like just have the discussion and like not fucking tell people that you can't say that because it's wrong. Well,
right. Tell me why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree, and that's like the whole point of a dialectic is to talk. But then we go back to, all right, are we debating or are we having a conversation?
Yeah.
You know, and it's up to an individual. And most people have not practiced having a dialogue. They've practiced debating.
Yeah, because I feel like that's what it ends up being most of the time. It's like my opinion versus yours, and like I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that. I'm gonna think about that more often.
Yeah.
When I like talk to someone.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
it changes
make the
things.
distinction between like, I'm not here to debate you. We're just here to like talk.
Yeah.
I like that.
And the problem is, what will happen is you'll find people's triggers, and then you'll see that emotional response, and you're like, oh, this has nothing to do with the facts. This has something to do with something else that you're attached to.
Huh.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes you think, well, if this person convinces me that dudes with dicks that think they're chicks are actually dudes, then my whole system of ethics shatters too.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's a hard thing to accept, you know, because like if you think that, right, if you think men with genitalia, J.K. Rowling, right, who think they're women, are now actually men. Like you really think that they're actually men now, and not just women in men's bodies.
Whatever they choose to.
Right.
Be.
If that now changes, then you have to look at other things differently too.
But I mean, come on.
Right, but I know. But like, there's something there that is emotionally triggering to them for them to accept that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you start having rough conversations, and you're like, well, I just disagree with it, and then they think that you're trying, like, what you just said is threatening their like peace of mind.
Yeah.
In a way. So it's interesting, man, because like, you can't have many real conversations with people because a lot of people are still angry at something.
You think so? I feel like you can. It's just you can't have. I feel like you can't have conversations with people that you don't necessarily like.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
I feel like when you know someone well enough and you've built that, then you can have those those type of discussions.
Yeah, and that is part of the process.
Yeah.
And like, when I see these debates, like when I think back on it, it's just like, that's never going to work. It's like, it's almost like you're not really adding anything just by debating, because you don't even know the person.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know that everybody that you had the best conversations with in your life are your friends.
Absolutely.
It's not really strangers. I mean, it's very, very rare that you have a conversation with a stranger and you're like, man, that was a great conversation. We just, thought, cool things. We say some cool things. We had a great time, whatever. It's rarely going to happen like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you think about a debate, it's like, you know that you're not going to have a good conversation if you don't know the person.
Yeah.
So you guys, it's almost like to have a debate, you need to be locked in a room for 3 hours together, drinking coffee or something. You know what I mean? And then have the debate.
Yeah.
You know?
Get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And then do that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's just like, because you see like, you see people who, like, I don't have a lot of the same views as a lot of people that I know out here.
Yeah.
But from forming friendships, I can actually talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And them not.
And you should be able to.
Yeah. And I am, with some people. And they don't get upset. And because they know me. And we kind of push that boundary a little bit. Little anger happens. We pull back. We laugh about something. We goof off. We do something else. And then we talk about it a little. And then you get angry. Okay, we back off. We go to something else. But that's the process of friendship.
Yeah.
You know? You're not always like getting along all the time and laughing and goofing. Like, you get mad at each other sometimes or angry or upset. And you're just like, okay, well, I'll let it go because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This goes back to like people like knowing that just because you think something doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to realize.
Yeah. Like there was a lot of people with like the Trump thing where like they voted for Trump and like, oh, you must be a fucking terrible person.
Right.
It's like they're not fucking terrible. Like really good friends of mine, their parents voted for like Trump and stuff.
Yeah.
And like as much as I personally didn't like him because of like his rhetoric and stuff,
yeah.
I didn't turn to them and be like, oh, you're a fucking terrible person. Like I knew you before you even voted for him and I liked you already.
Right.
It's not like I'm gonna fucking hate you for that. It's
yeah.
like, sure, like it was your choice and your right to do it. So by all means, but like once I got to talk to them about why, it made sense.
Yeah.
To them, it made sense. So like, how could I be mad about that?
Yeah. And when you don't have a lot of friends who have an opposing view, you can never like really understand that.
Yeah. It's living in a bubble.
Yeah. Where I grew up, it was pretty much the same as growing up out here, politically wise, right? It's the opposite. So I didn't have much of a reference point other than just women that didn't shave. You know what I mean? Hippies. Just smoking weed, not shaving. It's such a stereotype, But like that's it. And then you come out here and then you create friends. And they just so happen to be the opposing political influence that you grew up with.
Yeah.
And now you know them as a friend, as a person, right? Exactly what you said. And it's not that weird of a thing.
No.
When they're like, oh yeah, I think that. I'm like, oh, okay. Huh, well, I guess that would make sense if you grew up here. Everybody else thinks that way. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Doesn't make you a horrible person.
Absolutely not.
So, but a lot of people out here don't have friends that are conservatives. You know what I mean?
You think so?
Yeah.
I've
been told a couple times.
I think there's more conservatives here than people think. They're just
That's
not
true.
willing to like say it outright.
That's true.
Because
that's true.
Usually if you're conservative in LA, you get a lot of shit for it.
Right. But the majority of people in this huge city are.
You're in a huge bubble for sure.
Yeah. And when I talk to people, like I got a friend of mine, he's like, you're the only person I know who has these views. And I'm like, that's interesting. Because there's a ton of people I know who have these views. You know what I mean?
Or you'll get the I'm fiscally conservative, but
right,
socially
liberal. Yeah. And that makes sense. Yeah. You don't have to agree with everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the party, because I think that's what gets me. Like now that I'm older, like I like, oh, okay. There's financial things and then there's social things.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to agree with everything on both of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's okay. But like, you can't say that to some people, that diehard political party people. You're like, what? You disagree with the 17 trillion dollar bill they passed or whatever? It's just like, oh God. Never mind. I'm going to go get some cake or something, Just say whatever to get out of that conversation. But yeah, I mean, the friendship thing is so important.
Yeah.
And then what's hard about being a friend with somebody with an opposing view is then now your friends see you with that person. And depending on how demonized that ideology is, that'll dictate if you hang out with them in public.
Does it though?
Weak people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you and me, But like a lot of people, like just because how, like, let's say somebody, there's a lot of outrage on anything. Like if any athlete supports Trump,
yeah,
there's immediate damnation of that athlete.
Yeah.
No matter what race, religion, gender they are.
Yeah.
Right? So if you still say, hey, yeah, I'm still friends with that guy, and you're another athlete, then the media goes off after you as a supporter of a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
It's gotten so silly that, if you really do care about what other people think and like what news media say about you, then you might not talk to this person again.
Man,
that's weak.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
I agree, but
you don't turn your back on your friend just because of some like bit of pressure.
Well, I mean, that just exposes your character.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that. But here's the thing. You only do that because of money.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so what if people don't like me? But if you lose sponsorships, deals, brand deals.
Think about that twice.
Yeah. It's like, well, you wasn't that cool.
Don't disrespect China, baby.
Yeah.